Good morning. This is Tracy Johnson. I understand a few of you are still having some questions regarding the crosswalk and the PowerPoint that goes with it as part of your assignment in our course. So I'm going to walk you through that very quickly. This has been discussed multiple times. I've also provided written information not only in Moodle, but also through the instructor virtual office as well as individual student emails. So hopefully with this additional resource, you'll feel comfortable in completing this assignment. So I'm going to go to share my screen. Let's see here. So you can hopefully see what it is that needs to be done. Okay, so we're looking first at the actual instructions. This was due on August the 4th, and remember you will submit it into Module 3. So first thing, you have two choices on how you want to complete this assignment. Option 1 is to do a PowerPoint and the crosswalk. Option 2 is to do a video and the crosswalk. So let's say that you assume or you decide to do the PowerPoint. So you're going to create a 15 to 20 slide PowerPoint showing how PLCs can be used to address national and state standards. So here are 7 questions that will make up the bulk of your PowerPoint. I'm not going to read those to you, but hopefully you've been able to read enough by now. We're certainly into our last couple of weeks of the course. That you know what the purpose is, how to define it, how and why should they be used. Number 4, which standards may be obtained. Basically that's going to be any standard, whether it's a state standard, a national standard, etc. So if you can list out the types of standards etc. that could be used in a PLC or talked about, what kind or type might be most useful in addressing the standard. You're going to pick the one of the 6 standards that you do on the crosswalk, and you're going to go more in depth here. So, based on, let's say you chose a standard that you want to focus on in your PowerPoint is going to be, let's say from the student state standards, then you would put, that I chose standard, Louisiana standard, 1, 2, 3. It's best addressed, because this is a student standard by the grade level team, and that kind of thing. Then number 6, how will a PLC meet these standards? Well, again, you're going to continue to go deeper based on whatever standard in PLC that you chose in number 5 from your crosswalk. What are the kinds of things that a PLC would do or engage in to be able to address that standard? So it might be things like we might need to do some unit planning, we may need to do some assessment planning, we may need to unpack standards, etc. And then finally, how will you know if the PLC that you described to me in number 5 and you expanded upon in number 6, how are you going to know if the work that they're doing is effective? So it may be things like you may evaluate, you may do some classroom walkthroughs, you may do some observations, but what evidence are you going to use to prove that particular PLC is effective? So you're also going to do the crosswalk, which is really just an unpacking standards activity, but make sure that you align the work or the type of the work and the type of PLC with the standard that you choose, and I'll walk you through that in a minute. And of course, make sure that in your PowerPoint you include a reference page. You should be able to upload both the crosswalk and the PowerPoint into Moodle under Module 3 with no problems. And make sure that you are looking at the various resources that I provided for you in Moodle. The other option would be to do a 2 to 3 minute video, and again, you're just going to answer those same questions I just went over, but you're going to videotape yourself answering those as opposed to doing it through the PowerPoint. Okay, so let's close that one out, and now let's look at the other thing that you are probably needing some assistance with. This is the actual standards crosswalk. So it is multiple pages, but you are only going to do and complete page 1. I have given you literally dozens upon dozens of examples on what this looks like and how to do it. But let's focus on first the instructions and then the 2 samples or examples that I've provided for you. So you're going to do a total of 6 standards. So you're going to pick two standards from any of these sources, ISSLC, SLLA, NBPTA, etc. So if I were going to do that, I would just do a simple Google search, and let's say I decide to do ISSLC standards, and here we go. Right here it pops up under my search, and I can pick and choose any of these standards that I want to. I could choose standard 1. I could also choose standard 1A. So let's say that I decide these are going to be the standards right here that I use, that we promote the success of every student through a vision of learning that's shared and supported, and it was collaboratively developed and implemented. Okay, so going back now to the actual assignment. So as you can see here, I chose ISSLC Standard 1, and here's the pieces of the standard that are verbs: facilitating the development, articulation, implementation, and stewardship. So again, I took that same standard right here and I picked out the verbs. Very simply, pretty easy process to do. Next, what was the adjective? Well, those things, it needs to be shared and supported. What's the object? So we're going to facilitate, develop, articulate, implement, and steward what? The vision of learning. Okay? And again, this is all taken directly from this standard right here. Okay? Then the next part of the template asks you, what type of PLC would address this standard? Well, obviously the ISSLC standards are intended for college level programs, or to make sure that we are aligning the work that we do for principals, etc. So what would be the type of instructional team, or the type of PLC? Well, in my instance, I think this would best be done by an instructional team, that we need to collaborate and see who that is. And I have given you my example here. So if I were in a school, I would include the principal, the instructional coach, the assistant principal, the grade level chairs, and academic coaches. So what are we going to be working on? Well, because our job is to develop a vision of learning, that's what the activity is going to be that this instructional team, the PLC type, let me just type that in there for you, is going to be doing. So they're going to be working on vision and mission development. Okay, so that is a sample of one of the two standards that you're going to do that are professional standards, standards for teachers, for leaders, etc. Then you're going to do 4 student state academic standards. So again, I'm going to go back to my little Google thing here, and let me open up another screen, and I'm going to do, let's say I want to do Louisiana state standards for K through 12 students. Okay. And you will see that it comes right up here. So the first one is actually mathematics. But let's just go to their academic standards, which is found under Louisiana Believes. I could do the same Google search for Texas, or for Arkansas, or for California, or anybody else I want, and the standards will come up. Well, in this particular instance, I chose Louisiana LS EA6. So let's see if we can find the one that I chose as a sample. Let's see. It's probably going to be, let me look back again here. Just bear with me 1 second so I can remember which one I did. Okay, so this is actually a kindergarten standard. And it's about classifying. So let's go back again to our search here, and I know that I'm looking at kindergarten. So let's see here. We can choose, it's probably going to be a science one. So I'm going to download and look at those standards. And here they come. Sorry, it's taking a second here. And I'm looking at kindergarten science standards. Sorry, my computer's being a little bit slow and getting everything open here. Let me move this over so you can now see it, hopefully. So you'll see here are some of the standards for kindergarten here in Louisiana. And, I could just pick any one of them. So I chose ESS6. So, that might be one. But let's say that we didn't. We decided to do this one. So analyze data, determine if the design solution works as intended to change the speed or direction of an object with a push or a pull. Okay, pretty simple. So let's go back to the crosswalk. And I would put in my standard right here. Then I'm going to break it apart just like we talked about. Well, in this particular standard, let me do this here. See if it'll take me to that. Okay, it's not allowing me to do that, but I've given you the example. So in this instance, the actual standard is to classify what, various, and then the what part is food into the major food groups. So the standard reads something like, students will be able to classify various types of foods into the major food groups. So all I've done is identified my verb, which is classify. What am I doing? I'm classifying the foods into the major food groups, and what type of food groups? It just says various. Well, since I know this is a kindergarten standard, I think the people that are best equipped to do this is going to be my kindergarten team. So that's what the type of PLC is. Now, what are they going to do? They're going to design a unit. They could do a lot of things. They could unpack the standard. They could decide to create an assessment that goes along with it. They could decide to, actually do a lesson. They may decide to look at some student work samples. They may decide to, plan a field trip and lesson around this. So you're going to pick 4 student standards, can be any grade from any state, that's fine, and 2 professional standards. If you're still unsure how to do that, the next several pages, as you will see, are examples. So you can click on some of these hot links here. Well, like I said, it's not working right now for me because I'm sharing it, but you can just, look at any one of these and see how it's unpacked, and then you can decide what is the type of the PLC and what are they going to do to complete the activity. Okay, so hopefully this serves to clarify, exactly what should be done to complete this assignment. It's not an exact science. It's just a matter of unpacking the standard and answering the basic questions. So, what are we being asked to do? Is that to classify? Is it to expand? Is it to differentiate? Is it to explain? That's going to be in the standard. It's a verb. Then what are we being asked to do? So we're being asked maybe to differentiate or to explain a particular thing, such as the structure of an atom. Or we're being asked to differentiate between prose and nonfiction. Okay, that is the object. And then what is the descriptor telling us to do? Is it to, look at various types of food groups, as we talked about, or to differentiate, large quantities of, differentiate between large quantities of fossils. I don't know. It can be any number of things. And then you decide what kind of PLC best addresses that. And I will tell you, just as a hint, if it is a student standard, it's usually going to be best addressed by a student team, by a teacher team, either grade level or content department chair or content, whatever. What are the types of activities they're going to do? So what are they going to do to actually address that standard? Are they going to look at designing a unit? Are they going to unpack the standard? Are they going to, align it to their assessments, etc.? For the professional standards, same idea. You're going to look at that standard, identify what you're being asked to do. So it could be something like, examine, the code of ethics. So that's the what. you know, for Texas teachers. And, you know, what are the adjectives? Well, it's Texas, you know, because we're going to be looking at Texas standards. You know, for those professional standards, it generally needs to be a leadership type team that is needing to address that. And the kinds of things they're going to do is really described by your standard. So, for example, if we're going to examine, let's say the standard is examine the code of ethics for Texas teachers. Well, what might we do within our leadership PLC? We're going to actually look at the code of ethics and develop some, you know, learning strategies on how to observe and check them. Okay, so lots of different ways to go. You know, there's a lot of creativity allowed in this this particular assignment. So hopefully you'll find this helpful. Thanks.